Everybody, I'm more gravity. Let's play chess. Okay. Let's review that second game. This game that just finished. I'm going to review this game. Okay. Kind of jittery. We played into this strange opening that seems like it's from the English opening, but it's not. With this early move to f5, and I pushed the pawn to d4 as all my pawns were secure, and then exchanged in the center. And I think White has a lot to show for himself here on move 7. Black to move on move 7. Look at this power in the center. We've got our pawns. The most important place for them to be is in the center, backed by knight, right? All these key squares are being covered at least once. You could argue that the d4 square isn't actually covered, it's occupied, so yeah, okay, maybe that's true. The queen is in a powerful place where she exerts influence on large areas of the board here in the center, and her main harasser on b8 would move to c6 to kick her out of this spot, but he's not there. He's been traded with White's g1 knight. The knight that starts on g1 was traded for the knight that starts on b8. So they're gone. This queen, therefore, is quite powerful. I think my opponent made the right move here to liquidate these pawns and then make moves to both develop, but also soon enough, there it is, pawn to e5, striking back in the center, staking his, her, or their own claim, and hitting the white queen, forcing her to backpedal. Fortunately, I was conservative in this matter to make sure that my queen stayed where she's protecting the knight at e4. I was aware that knight needed protection at that point. It would be natural but bad to just move her back to d1, maybe off to the side a little bit here to c3, but then the knight at e4 hangs. These are the types of moves that beginners, intermediates, and maybe some advanced players make it while playing chess. As you get more advanced, you're aware that your queen is the only piece holding down against the e4 knight. Now, I could also have chosen instead of that to capture on f6, but since it's with check, black can't immediately capture the queen, and then black could respond with either queen f6 or pawn takes f6, and then retreat my queen to a useful square. But I didn't think this was in White's best interest. Keep the queen out and powerful where I placed her at d4, but then still out and powerful where I placed her now at e3. Of course, keeping defense of the e4 knight. My opponent applies pressure. Bishop to f5. It's another active, good move, developing move. It's the right piece to develop. Torch indicates this as an inaccuracy. Maybe not. Most often, yes, in computer precise play, but as a practical and pragmatic move, I think that bishop to f5 here is exactly right. Is pretty much the best move. So that's fine. And I decide now to exchange knights. Maybe I could have done this earlier. I didn't feel like it then. And White is doing well on this board anyway. In terms of king safety, White's in the lead. Materials even. Space isn't necessarily the main thing you would think about on this board, but space is about even. The clock is, I'm usually behind on my clock, so 3:53 against 4:35. Yeah, my opponent's um, 42 seconds ahead of me. 40 has 42 more seconds of time by making his or they moves quicker. We're not too worried about that right now. Yeah, king safety, space, mobility. White's probably doing really well here in terms of mobility. Um, Although black has some trumps for his position as well. And then initiative. It's white's turn to move. It's so often initiative, uh, the lead in initiative is whoever's turn it is to move. I'm not sure I hammered home that lead because I castled, and very rarely does one castle to keep initiative alive. But yeah, I'm okay with this position. I'm okay with this position for white. Now, Torch has white with a 1.1 lead. That would you would interpret that as about a pawn and then a tenth of a pawn in favor of white here. Maybe not. No, I think that's a little bit optimistic. But then again, these are our computer overlords, and they know so much about chess. In my opinion, I don't think white is quite that much better off here. Black has more central pawns. A developed bishop on f5 that's better than its same colored square peer or adversary. It's bishop pairs all around, and I think maybe some of this score of being in favor of white a bit is because of black's dark squared bishop is just not going to be playing a strong role in this game very soon. And he needs to move, and then the king will castle kingside, and there'll be this light square diagonal on which white could attack. And if the king castles to the queen side, okay, mate, no, queenside castles is disaster here. So I think Torch has a good point here that white's position is maybe a little bit better than immediately meets the eye. Bishop to e7, simple development. It gets a indication as a mistake. That's the mistake level of that. I mean, what else is that bishop? How else are you going to activate this? How else are you going to activate this bishop? Activate this bishop. Where else is that bishop going to go to become part of the game? And then I played bishop to h5 check. Pawn on g6, of course, moving now back to safety. I felt that this long diagonal, the long light squared diagonal was best for my light squared bishop, better even than say a placement on e2 where the bishop could help defend c4. c4's defended more or less by b3 at any point. And do we want our bishop to block the e file? Probably not. So I chose f3, knowing that there's some counterplay for black, perhaps by pushing pawn to e4, and maybe with a central major piece behind it, or what have you. Pawn to g5. Not worried about that. I have immediate plans of capturing on b7 and exposing the weakness of black's not all that safe king, of black's unsafe king. Grabbing the material, white now has a material advantage. Seizing the initiative by attacking the more higher valued piece on a8. The rook goes where probably just about it has to go. It's the best placement for the rook. Obviously on the light squares, the bishop has him, and on this square at b8, well, then the queen's going to make the same move she makes in the game, which is to capture on a7, and with where my opponent placed the move, where my opponent placed the rook, it saves him, her, or they a move on the board. Because if the rook were here, we'd have to be scooting over to the e-file anyway. There might be some kind of exception where like the king moves and now this rook is supporting this rook on b8. These are for deep thought move contemplations that you would make during slower time controls and not during a 5-minute game. But for all intents and purposes, the rook on d8, when that move was made, was definitely the right move anyway. Rook to d8 here. And now white suddenly has a 2-pawn material lead. His king is still kind of out there, asking to be attacked. And I was thinking to my teachings to play bishop to e3 as just kind of a calm developing move. Got a lot going for us. We don't have to jump into this attack by playing bishop c6 or queen a4 check, bishop c6 check, or queen a4 check. Doesn't have to happen right away. Get our pieces developed. Rooks are connected, so that actually adds to king safety and all these other great things, as well as their mobility, you know. So I developed my bishop there, sort of restraining my usual impulse to go, bah, I'm gonna get you, rawr. I'm a member of RAR. So now, bishop to c6 check is probably is the right move or just about. We've got black's king on the run. We put check to him again. I think, frankly, king to f8 is not as good as just dropping back to the same spot on e8 and aiming for a repeat of position. He was not e8, right? Yeah, okay. So we put a check here against black's king. I'm thinking repeating position is about as good as black can hope for here. But he didn't. He went to f8. It also, keeps the game alive and some fun things happening. I start a pawn storm on the queen side, mostly for want of anything else to do. I'm not worried about any attack against my king right now. Some of these bishops, or both of these bishops, are ready to play a part in defense. I have a full and healthy pawn shield. I've got a square to move to if I have to. So I'm not really worried about a strong kingside attack right yet. My opponent will go through with those motions anyway. A good pawn storm against me is still the best prescription for black in this position. I see that pawn to c5 wasn't so accurate, and neither was pawn to g3. These things do happen. I am capturing all day towards the edge here with the f-pawn. We see that I didn't notice this when I played the pawn move, all truth be told. Did I? I might have. I think it was the deciding factor. Anyway, now the bishop on f5 is pinned, and he is going to be a goner because the sacrifice rook takes f5 puts black's queen into action. Queen takes f5, and then this horrible mate I fall into would have gotten me if my opponent had took advantage of pawn takes h2 check. The king must duck to the h square, and then rook's gone with a check, and then just to make it mate in 3 as indicated by the computer, bishop to a1. And that doesn't quite do it, but I'm gonna tell you that it's there. Oh, because the pawn is holding down g1. Yes. So let's take a look at this. I missed this move when I captured on f5. The queen captures back. Then I played rook f. No, here white is still doing fine. I played rook f1, thinking, look, I've got this skewer on the f file. I can't capture, and my opponent plays pawn takes h2 check. I cannot capture because the h2 pawn is defended. There's only one move. There's only one legal move for white here, so we play king to h1. Now it's check again along the first rank, and this horribly hopeless, or seemingly hopeless move, bishop to g1, and the queen captures with check. The pawn captures with check and promotes while doing so, as multiple pieces are now giving checkmate to white's king. The more common way a human would tackle this, at least. Now I don't want to say that, but there's another way to tackle this checkmate if you're black here, and that's just the more simple queen takes g1 checkmate. Just kind of appeals in case of of playing real quick and just getting the checkmate done. So I dodged a bullet. I sure did. I dodged a bullet. That's not what happened instead. Queen takes f1 check, and I capture the queen, and the rook captures the rook captures also not all that great. I think if pawn takes h2 and then pawn to g4, white has coverage on the h1 square, and with queening, pawn to h1 equals queen. White would sacrifice this bishop. Rook comes in, takes on h1 with check, and overall, white has lost a pawn and a bishop for a pawn. If there's a dynamic and difficult, this would lead to a dynamic and difficult checkmate. I was sort of expecting this capture with the pawn, but when my opponent played rook takes h2, I said, aha, now we have this. We'll solidify. King goes to g1. This is really actually a blunder by my opponent. It's given inaccuracy, but as my opponent is giving away a full bishop for no reason, this is, in my view, this is definitely double question marks. So I capture the bishop on e7. There's a resignation. With 6 points ahead in material, I can probably close this down against maximum. Maybe, I don't know. I can definitely close this down because there's this rook hanging, and capture a pawn, and the computer's throwing a rook at me. Let's help the computer a bit with let's throw that rook at me. Yeah. This is the type of stalemating trap. Black's king is entombed. His pawns are halted. If I capture here, that's it. That's stalemate. So let's go back. This is a mate in one. I'm sure we can figure out. We go here. All right, 8:45. Let's play till one more win. Turn off some lights. Okay. Let's find our next win, and we'll be ready. Alright, we got our win. Let's review this game. Let's just start a review too. I'm more interested in the game that just finished. However, set the other one in motion. Alright. This game was reasonably accurate. That's good to see. So what to say about the position through to here? D6 was a little bit passive. We might play bishop to b4 here. Knight to d4 was an active move towards the center. I like that. Pushing my the knight that's left on the board back to e2. I'm okay with that. I'm going to reposition it to the king side. It's going to be part of the attack. And when I get the chance, if I get the chance, I'm playing pawn to d3. We do, I thought even here before development, no, because pawn to d3 would lose to the bishop, capturing it immediately. So, knight f6 was excellent, and now me playing pawn to d3 was cautious, a bit of a preventative measure. We do not want to see black's d pawn getting into white's camp here and causing too much trouble. White wants a more orderly game out of this, and have a very, orderly attack against the king side. Bishop takes h6 was interesting. Black did not want to go for pawn takes h6 and queen takes h6. There might be this extra knight and a number of pawns, and even this rook is getting into the thing against black's king. So g6 was played. Some accurate calculations leave white ahead 6 points of material, and just to consolidate from here on. We'll watch it play out, I suppose. That piece was lost due to a pin, and white is completely mopping up here. All right. So, I took quite a beating here through 1, 2, 3, 4 games in a row. 5 games in a row without a win. It was a bit of a beating, but I survived and was glad to have earned a win at the end of things here. So that too is favorable. Good. All right. Thank you so much for watching. I'm More Gravity. Have a great night.